What are the stories you should tell early when you're trying to first connect with your client? What are the stories you should tell when you're trying to explain how you're different and what you can do to help them differentiate? And then what are the stories that help you get the deal closed?
Welcome back. I'm delighted to have you here because I've got Mike Adams with me. Mike's an expert in sales storytelling. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me, John. It's great to be on your show. I've watched so many versions of it over the years. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I'm really pleased about this. I've just seen Mike in action at a workshop, and look, what you've got to give to the sales fraternity is brilliant. So let's talk about that a little bit. I wonder and we're going to go through 10 or so interviews with you.
Yeah.
In the first, I really want you to nail for us, why is it so important we do storytelling in the selling environment?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. If you went back 10 or 20 years, storytelling was considered unbusinesslike. You know, we don't tell stories in the business context. Most of us, I think, appreciate that we learn from stories and we've loved them as children, and I think most people realize that that's how human knowledge has been passed on over millennia. But why scientifically should we tell stories?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, the reason is to do with how our mind works, particularly the cortex, the big, bulby, wrinkly part of our brain. That's an organ that's trying to predict what's happening next. And this is important to understand. Stories are inherently unpredictable, and our mind pays attention to what's unpredictable. Whatever we can easily predict, we switch off. And that happens in every business meeting and every presentation. Your client, your customer switches off because they think they know what you're going to say next, because the salespeople will
I found myself guilty. Yeah, I found myself very guilty of that. You know, I'm sitting there in a meeting and my mind wanders off because I know exactly what they're saying, and suddenly I'm caught.
That's right. But they don't do that with stories because we've learnt since childhood that stories are interesting, that they're unpredictable. So we pay attention, and that's the first really big reason to use stories, is it's a way to pass information where you know your client is listening. And that's pretty important because a lot of people aren't listening these days. They're distracted by their smartphones, right? So we're using stories to set up a conversation environment where your client listens because they want to know what happens next. And we put into the story the important information about ourselves, why we should be trusted, about why we're different in the market, why they should consider us, and how they can get decisions made. So we can use stories for multiple purposes. It's a multi-purpose tool for passing information that your client would like to listen to.
And it's in a way they can remember.
Absolutely, right? because what our brain is doing is remembering sequences, trying to predict what's going to happen next and remember. And we remember stories above all else because once we've learnt it and we've heard that unpredictable story, we memorize that as a sequence. And we don't memorize things that are disconnected facts, that they're not memorable.
In your book, the seven stories,
yes.
The 7 Stories book, 7 stories that every salesperson must tell. You talk about 7 stories.
Yes.
Why 7 stories?
Well, a couple of reasons. Catchy title, and people have written books about 7 before that you might know of. 7
Sure,
habits.
there's more than that though.
No, there is more. Well, one thing is, I want people to remember that there are types of stories, and we don't remember much above 7 things. So 7 is like an upper limit for easy memory. And I've arranged the stories through a buying journey. What are the stories you should tell? What are the stories you should tell early when you're trying to first connect with your client? What are the stories you should tell when you're trying to explain how you're different and what you can do to help them differentiate? And then what are the stories that help you get the deal closed? And that is a bit of an unknown area for most salespeople.
I like that, because what you're telling me is you're thinking about the buying journey and the sales process and thinking about all the points through those 2 processes and different types of stories.
That's right.
At different points
and
in time.
by knowing that there are types of stories that are effective at different parts of the sales cycle, you've got a framework to go and prepare those stories, because I think most of us can tell stories. Most of us probably think we're storytellers, but there are some technical aspects to getting it right, knowing what a story is and knowing what type of story to tell when makes a big difference. So that's the framework in the book. It's a
Okay,
guidebook.
so next time we get together,
Yes.
can we talk a little bit more detail then about that framework
Yes.
and how to frame a story?
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be really important for me to understand.
Perfect. I'd love
Okay,
to.
so let's get to the bottom line of this. Why is storytelling important? Bottom line is,
We pay attention, we listen, we absorb the facts in an easy way, the way we like to hear them, because humans like to tell stories.
and the we you're talking about there is our customers.
Us and our customers.
Our customers,
Yes.
and our customers, if you're using storytelling in sales, you're going to communicate your message much more effectively and get them much more engaged.
And they'll tell you their stories, which is exactly what you need to know as a salesperson.
Good
You
point.
want to hear their stories.
Good point. Okay, so we'll have Mike back again. I look forward to having this. Mike, thank you very much. Great message, and I'm really looking forward to this whole series.
Thanks, John.